A recent revelation concerning Earth's atmosphere and changes, we just got closer to pinpointing a major moment in Earth's evolutionary history. This was originally from the Royal Society publishing Archaean Origin of Oxygenic Photosynthesis. How the atmosphere of the Earth changed. I mean, the Earth must have been really terrible to live in if humans lived billions of years ago. Now, for the vast majority of animals on Earth, breath is synonymous with life, yet for the first 2 billion years of our planet's existence, oxygen was in scarce supply. There was a lot of cyanobacteria. We know that the elephant die-off in Africa is said to be caused by that. Some lakes in China have also turned green from this cyanobacteria, and it's poisonous. It's toxic, of course, to all life. So that doesn't mean, though, Earth was lifeless for all that time, but that life was rarer and vastly different from what we know today. It was only when more complex bacteria that could photosynthesize stepped onto the scene that everything began to change, and it triggered what scientists called a great oxidation event. But when did all this happen, and how did it all evolve? A new gene analyzing technique provides the hints of a new timeline. The estimates suggest it took bacteria 400 million years of gobbling sunlight and puffing out oxygen before life could really thrive, they said. In other words, they were likely organisms on our planet capable of photosynthesizing long before the great oxidation event. In evolution, things always start small. This is what geobiologist Greg Fournier explains. He's from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He says even though there's evidence for early oxygenic photosynthesis, which is the single most important and really amazing evolutionary innovation on Earth, it still took hundreds of millions of years for it to take off. Right now, there are two competing narratives to explain the evolution of photosynthesis in special bacteria known as cyanobacteria. I support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. Some think the natural process of turning sunlight into energy arrived on the evolutionary scene quite early on, but that is progressed with a slow fuse. Others think photosynthesis evolved later but took off like wildfire. So you can see they have various theories about this. Much of the disagreement comes down to assumptions about the speed at which bacteria evolved and different interpretations of the fossil records. So Fournier and his colleagues have now added another form of analysis to the mix. In rare cases, the bacterium can sometimes inherit genes not from its parents, but from another distant related species. And this can happen when one cell eats another and incorporates the other's genes into its genome. Scientists can use this information to figure out the relative ages of different bacterial groups. For example, those that have stolen genes must have pinched them from a species that existed at the same time as them, and such relationships can then be compared to more specific dating attempts like molecular clock models, which use the genetic sequences of organisms to trace a history of genetic changes. So to this end, the researchers combed through the genomes of thousands of bacterial species, including the cyanobacteria. They were looking for cases of horizontal gene transfer. In total, they identified 34 clear examples. When comparing these examples to 6 molecular clock models, the authors found one in particular fit most consistently. Picking this model out of the mix, the team ran estimates to figure out how old photosynthesis bacteria really are. The findings suggest all species of cyanobacteria living today have a common ancestor, and that it existed around 2.9 billion years ago. Meanwhile, the ancestor of those bacteria, those ancestors, branched off from non-photosynthetic bacteria about 3.4 billion years ago. Photosynthesis probably evolved somewhere in between those two dates. Under the team's preferred evolutionary model, cyanobacteria were probably photosynthesizing at least 360 million years before the GEO. If they're right, this further supports the slow fuse hypothesis. This new paper sheds essential new light on Earth's oxygenation history by bridging in new ways the fossil record with genomic data, including horizontal gene transfer. This is what biochemist Timothy Lyons from University of California, Riverside explains. He says the results speak to the beginnings of biological oxygen production and its ecological significance in ways that provide vital constraints of the patterns and controls on the earliest oxygenation of the oceans and later accumulations in the atmosphere. The authors hope to use this gene analysis technique to analyze organisms other than cyanobacteria in the future. This was published in Proceedings for the Royal Society of Britain, and it's, of course, a long article there, an abstract and comments. This is on Science Alert by Carla Casella. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support.